Good evening, and welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Lens. I'm Jamie Widener, your host for the evening, and I'm joined as usual with my co-host, Chad Thomas. Good evening, Chad. What's going on?
Oh, not much, Jamie. It's back to school time. The kids are back to school.
Yeah, that is true, and so far so good.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
and only 178 more days to go.
Who's counting, right?
They're not yet. Oh, they might be. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's I don't know. I remember this, and
Yep.
like the beginning of the year is always so exciting and fun, and then you start to settle in the routine, and we were just chatting about this, obviously, folks, offline. So bear with me. We're going to rehash this, but the excitement of the year starts off with everybody getting up on time, being ready, and out the door. And then week 2, you kind of slow down a little bit. Week 3, and then by the end of maybe week 4, they're growling. The kids are growling at you, trying to get them up in the morning. So I'm waiting for the growls to start, and I know they're coming. So I'll take the on time right now. It's great.
Yep. It's great. So
we did it. We did it to our parents. Now the kids are doing it to us. It's the cycle. So
yep.
Oh well.
All right. What do you have this week, Jamie?
Well, we have something interesting. And we've been talking about this for I don't know how many months now, it seems. But we are going to talk tonight about the Red Mill Museum Village in Clifton, New Jersey. And this is a site that we're going to be at as a team, along with many, many others this weekend on Saturday night. And with that, I thought it would be a good idea to give us, kind of give a preview in advance of it, some of the history, some of the good stuff about it. And, we're hopeful we'll do justice to the 213, I believe, years worth of history. It's going to be a short snippet of it, not a lot of detail, but there's a lot of cool stuff and some fun happening there. So, and of course, we're going to talk about we'll plug our event a bit more. There's still a very few amount of tickets left. So if this piques the interest of someone watching, hopefully we'll get you there on Saturday evening and get immersed in all the good stuff that's happening. So
hey, Jamie, no pressure, but Ed.
I know I see this, right? Oh gosh.
Hey, Ed, nice to see you.
Ed, it's great to have you. Thank you. Be kind to me on this, please.
Kyle Morgan, thanks for joining us tonight.
So the gist of this is the mill it's called the Red Mill, but it wasn't always the Red Mill, right? So it was originally built in 1810, and it was built by a gentleman named Ralph Hunt. And Ralph was part of a family that owned several mills in the central-ish southern Jersey area, and I believe also eastern PA in the region. So the area was actually originally known as Hunt's Mills, and now is Clifton. And I'll get to why that happened or how that happened in a moment. But here is the mill itself, and it looks very much like it did from back in the day. The building is 4 stories. It's got a water wheel on it. That is the drive of the mill itself. It sits right along the Raritan River. So that is a steady flow of water happening there. There is a dam that is built. You can see that here on the right-hand side of the image. That goes all the way across the river. And Clifton itself is off to the right. It's a really cute kind of Main Street Americana town that has some really deep roots going back to why the mill is there. And in a lot of part of the property the mill is on is actually a quarry as well. We're back behind the mill. What you see now, the direction, if you go behind that way, back into the trees, there's back a little bit, there's a quarry where a lot of the limestone used to build a lot of the buildings, the foundations came from. So that's quite an interesting thing as well. So the mill opened in 1810, as I said. It closed officially for operations in 1928. So that is 118 years worth of history. And a lot of stuff has happened there in between. So we'll get through some of the owners and the stuff that was going on in the mill in a second. But what's really important right now is to say that it is currently a preserved historical property operating as a nonprofit museum. So the event that we're having there Saturday night, and there have been others like this in the past. There'll be more coming, probably next year now that we're getting into the fall and the weather's changing. But all of the events that happen there are helping to support the upkeep and the displays of museum works and everything that is a part of this cool property. So, even if you don't get to go with us Saturday night, you can still come and see the place as a guest of the museum and take a tour and so forth. And I'll get to some of that toward the end of the episode as well. So, but it is a functional place where you can actually go in and see a lot of exhibits and a lot of cool stuff through history. So speaking of history, let's get there. So first of all, again, 1810, Ralph Hunt opens the mill, and it is used for cotton production. And we're talking 1800s, early 1800s. So you can imagine there is not electricity yet. The water wheel is the motion of this, the operations there. So the river level is important, and keeping that moving. That the water flow is really what's driving the operations of the mill. Cotton is a big production point, coming into making clothing and garments and things like that. Wool, of course, comes from that. The challenge that I think Mr. Hunt found was that he had a lot of competition from outside of the U.S. Actually, in Europe, there were the production facilities there were more in tune to mass production. Imports were coming in rapidly. Everything's hitting the East Coast, so the market's getting flooded. And unfortunately, by 1820, the business has failed. And that is what he cites as one of the key issues is the influx of competitor products that were less expensive than what he was able to make. And, that's kind of one of those big economic things, from what we even deal with now, the import of lower cost goods from other countries because of the cost of labor and other resources versus domestically made products is still a concern for us, where we are 200 and some odd years later. So, but in 1920, Mr. Hunt lost the mill and the 400 acres that it sat on to foreclosure. The property sits idle for a little bit. And in 1928, two gentlemen come in, and here's the beginning of a lot of Johns. So John Bray and John B. Taylor take over the mill property. They kept the cotton production going, but they also diversified a little bit. And they started grinding feed, flour, and plaster, which is a synonym for plaster material. And they opened a dry goods store. So you have a little bit of everything happening now. You're starting to see a little bit more activity on the property. Mr. Taylor was part of an affluent local family and with connections, and he made in turn the change of the name from Hunt's Mills to Clinton, which is named after a very popular New Jersey governor at the time, DeWitt Clinton. So a little bit of politics happening here too, and the name stuck. It is still Clinton to this very day. So here's another tale of the economy perhaps having an impact, and a little bit maybe of the location being a bit more rural than some of the more metropolis type places. But by 18, I keep wanting to say 19 because 18 seems so long ago. 1834, their business failed, and the property was sold for about a third of the purchase price by a gentleman named John W. Snyder. So the third John to own the property. He refitted it exclusively as a grist mill, and grist mill is a processing of grains and so forth into feed and things like that. But also his business failed. So by the time 1842 rolled around, he had sold the business. By that point, there's a lot of owners in quick succession. Maybe some things just didn't work out. A lot of great records there. But also in 1842, Easton Bank split the property. I mentioned 400 acres a moment ago. With a quarry in the far background of this image. They split the property as the mill and the quarry. And I believe at that point, the quarry became known as Mulligan's Quarry. We'll get to more of that in a little bit too, because of the connection. So by 1847, the mill was sold to another John F. Steger, and another John A. Young. They produced grist and flour. So getting away from cotton altogether. All the while through this, we're still dealing with the mill production now, again, active and engaged. So by 1868, John Young sold his portion to the partner John Steiger, and by 1871, John Steiger sold the mill to an unknown buyer. There was a window of about 2 years, 1871, 1873, where a couple changing of hands again, some quick succession ownership. And then in 1873, a gentleman named Philip Gulick, and the first person not named John in a while, owned the place. And he buys the mill. And under Gulick, the mill was grist and flour on the third and fourth floor. They made peach baskets on the ground floor. And in 1892, he set up the Clinton Illuminating and Water Company on the second level. And this is interesting because here comes progress. The illuminating part of it is lighting, of course. And with that, they provide electricity for the streetlights that were installed in Clinton, right off the mill, which again is right across the river, the Raritan from the mill. Mr. Gulick has passed on, though, unfortunately, by 1901. So here we are now in the new century. And his widow rents the mill to two brothers named Elmer and Chester Thompson. By 1905, the Thompson brothers have been so successful that they're able to buy the mill from Mrs. Gulick. And once that happened, the production changed to milling graphite. So something totally uniquely different than the wool and cotton production and any of the foodstuff type production. The problem with graphite is it is a very chalky and dark material, and it left a cloud of dust that settled over across the river into Clinton. And the mill became known as the Black Mill because of what it was producing out of it. That was not very popular with the townsfolk, of course, because it's a mess to clean up and some things going on there. So the residents addressed this issue with the Thompson brothers, and they opted to move production to talc. And in that is a totally different material. It's still a chalky substance, but it's white. So instead of being the black mill, and now it became known as the white mill. And this kind of has that feel maybe of Game of Thrones, perhaps, or something. I don't know. It's kind of ominous. I thought it was really funny, though. Maybe the bad guy being the black hat and the good guy being the white hat. I don't know. But the white mill was its nickname or moniker for a little while there. This is also an interesting point because production went to 24/7 every day, and they were working in 3 shifts. And this is also a kind of an uptake of property because they were now adding buildings onto the property for storage and needs based around the production of that 24/7 schedule. They were busy. They were hopping. So, and then finally, though, in 1928, Chester Thompson sold the mill to the Clinton Water Supply, and then the mill ceased productions at that point. So 118 years after being built and a lot of use in between, there was quite a lot going on. So Chad, if we'll move through some of these slides, there are some cool things. First of all, the map is the next page. So this is the actual property. And, it's quite a lot going on here. The mill is in the bottom right-hand corner. As you'll see, there's a lane going back, and then a lot of the other properties that are part of the museum village itself. So this is not just a one building thing. There's quite a lot to do here. It's almost like an exploration when you go, and which is really cool because all of these things are point in times. Different eras, different buildings, different needs, different resources that were used in them. And it's quite an interesting property because it sprawls quite a lot. And that's kind of one of the cool things about us coming in this weekend is that we're going to be able to have access to some of these different buildings other than just the mill itself. And then if you go to the next slide, we'll start to see some of the things that are part of the mill building. There's some exhibits here. A lot of this stuff is period appropriate or period genuine to the property. Next slide, please. A lot of the workspaces and a lot of the equipment and machinery that were original to the property are still here. Next slide, please. And of course, you can't get into some of it or much of it, that way because there are dangers still, even all through all these years, but also things are very delicate. So you'll see there's some areas that are cordoned off intentionally. So please, if you do get there, don't hop the rail, even if it is chasing a ghost. Next slide, please. And there's some big wide open spaces as well. It's amazing how big this building really is. Next slide. Again, more intricate equipment. Next one. This is a workshop space, and it's kind of indicative of the time. There's a lot of hand tools here. There's not a lot of actual machinery that we would see in a modernized facility. Things were done by hand and created by hand, like the equipment and tools, actually. This is a blacksmith shop, too. You can see the anvil in the back. But that was an integral part of this because this is where tools were actually made. So there was a blacksmith working on site to meet the needs and create the things that we needed to keep things running. Next slide, please. And this is where the magic happens. The really important thing about this wheel is that it was the heart and driver of the mill itself. If this wheel stopped, if the water level declined, or if there was any mechanical errors or issues with this wheel and the wheel wasn't spinning, mechanicals of the rest of the facility stopped dead. So one of the really interesting things that I found in doing research for the property is, through the years of decline from 1928 on, the property sat idle for quite a long time. And those who know me know that I'm a nonprofit person at heart. So this property, I love what's happened to it. But what really fascinated me in 1960, there was a restoration process or project that was begun, and it was under the leadership of a group of gentlemen that became known as the Clinton Five. If you go to the next slide, these gentlemen, who are Monroe DeWitt, president of Shive Wright and Exton, which is a real estate and insurance firm; Cyrus Fox, owner of Cyrus R. Fox Lumberyard; Ralph Howard, owner of Clinton House, which is a local restaurant. He was a restaurateur. A gentleman named Robert Lechner, who was an educator and a camp director. And lastly, James Marsh, who was a local artist and musician, came together and pulled their resources and started connecting the community to restore the property to what you see it to be today. And the wheel, again, the driver of the whole heart of the place, was one of the very first things that were restored in order to get things operating again and getting the mill up to the level that you see it at today as a museum. So in 1963, 3 years later, the Clinton Historical Museum opens. In 1964, James Marsh buys the Mulligan Quarry and donates it to the museum, which is, again, the extension in the back end of the property. In 1965, the museum has its official dedication. 1966, the property became the Hunterdon Historical Museum, as it is in Hunterdon County, and I'm probably saying that a little bit wrong, New Jersey, but bear with me. And then lastly, and most recently in 2002, the property becomes the Red Mill Museum Village as we know it today. And what is fascinating to me too is that this whole process began with about 60 years ago. And the anniversary is 60 years this year for the museum village. So kudos to all who kept it running through all this time. Thank you for saving this beautiful property and letting us come and investigate and explore it as paranormal folks, but also just community members at large who can come. Now, talking about paranormal, right? Because that's what we are. We're Paranormal Lens.
Exactly.
So things have happened here, right? Through the course of 210 years, there have been some issues and people have passed on the property, and probably a lot more than we know about, because in 1810, all the way up through probably the early 1900s, there wasn't a lot of documentation. We found this in every place we've ever been that's older, right? So the issues would be that there was, tight spaces, mechanical issues, where things would break, people would be trying to get into tight spots. Things would start up again all of a sudden, they'd be trapped. A lot of folks got maimed, hands, feet, things like that, arms. But also some folks would have gotten caught in that machinery and likely hurt significantly. So the things that we do know: on the upper floor, there was a worker who fell into a hopper and head first, and he unfortunately suffocated till he could get removed or saved from being in there. So there is a known death there. The next was in an outbuilding. A young boy was cleaning a weapon, and the weapon discharged, unfortunately, on him, at him, and it killed him. So self-inflicted gunshot wound. And lastly, a family member of an employee had a heart attack in one of the tenant housing buildings. So those are known. Now, that doesn't seem like a whole lot, right? Because again, there's other stuff that have happened through the years. The paranormal activity, though, which is a bit different, because activity can come from a lot of different directions, but not necessarily being somebody who we know has passed, but someone who perhaps has loved and really cared for this property. There's quite a bit of other stuff that's going on. And those issues, first of all, the mill is built right next to a river and very near a limestone quarry. Okay. So we all know running water is a catalyst, and limestone is another natural catalyst toward paranormal activity. When those two come together, a lot of great things can happen, in our field. So one of the first things that we were informed about was there were footsteps in several locations, but primarily the tenant house. Objects get moved, and with no person or anyone near the object as it's been moved. There has been a report of a man in the third floor building when the building's been empty. There is tale of a photograph of this. I've searched for it. I cannot find it. Hopefully that is something that we may be able to see once we're there on site, that it's there somewhere. But I think that's fascinating. That happens a lot. A lot of old buildings where, someone's passing by just casually snapping pictures because it's a cool place, and all of a sudden they review it and there's something that isn't supposed to be there. So that's pretty cool. There was a man seen wearing a black hat or dark hat and period clothing. And it is important to note that the mill does not use reenactors in any of their presentations or displays. So this person would not belong there at that time. And I heard a story of a woman who was there on the tour, had to step away and use the restroom, and she was sidetracked by this fellow, and he was rough with her about why she was there in the first place. A few days later, she came back and expressed that the situation, and that's when the comment was shared that they don't use reenactors, so this person wouldn't have been there. It is believed, as I understand it, that could be Mr. Hunt, as he would have been in that era and have had a general appearance. There's been tugging on clothing, which is not unusual when there's activity. The feeling of hands on shoulders or being touched. There's been images with have orbs in them. Chad and I, you and I don't want to go sidetracked on orbs, I know, but we had a whole episode on that a while back.
Exactly.
Folks to go back and check some of our old episodes out. This is number 19. We've been around for a little while. But there are things that are legitimate phenomenons that could cause an orb to happen. So, and lastly, the ghost of a young girl who has, we understand, has come to visit her father. Again, someone who is not necessarily belongs there, but may have fond remembrances of spending time with family. So that's all very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, the thing that's really important is that activity is subject, right? And we say this when folks come to join us at Booby's Brewery, and when we're running our investigations there, one of the very first things I say is that no one is ever going to walk out of the wall and introduce themselves to you. They're not going to walk up and shake your hand and say, "I'm so and so." So you have to be attentive, to the space that you're in. So, what these are noted experiences that have happened, and that I totally believe everything that someone says has happened to them. But while you're there, it might not be. But that's why we go back and review evidence. We look at, we listen to audio. We do every best effort to make sure that we have done our due diligence to capture whatever might be happening in the space, even though we might not see it in the moment. So who knows? Something really cool could happen Saturday, and we hope so. Yeah. So that's the gist of it. I ran through a lot really, really quick, Chad. Bear with me on this. So, and I'm unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it Saturday still. I'm still on the injured reserve list, but I'd like to get your thoughts on all the stuff I just word vomited all over you. You've got a little bit of history with the mill based on what we know as a team so far. But
right.
What stands out to you the most of what we've shared there?
Just the ongoing history seems pretty amazing to me. Like the number of Johns that there were involved, and then just the time that there wasn't anything, and then picking back up. In the comments, I've been noticing that the mill representatives have been like agreeing with what you've been saying and stuff like that. So I think you it looks like you nailed it. Maybe we'll get some feedback from them Saturday, hopefully, if not in the chat here. But I'm excited to just, me, I love historic places anyway. I spent a lot of time in Williamsburg, things like that. So I'm really looking forward to just visiting this. I'm hoping to get down there with my camera earlier in the day and then spend some time taking pictures. And maybe I'll catch something during the day before everybody gets there. We'll see. But there's a lot to soak up there.
There is. The cool thing, and it goes to history, right? Because there's 200 years, and eras of stuff. One of the things that I always, that fascinate me, and we found this when we were at West Virginia Penitentiary, for sure. One thing that stands out is that in the audio, we heard what sounded like at least cell doors, well beyond the prison's not in operation. There's no reason, nothing is opening and closing. All those doors are electronic controlled. There should not be anything there making that sound, but yet the residualness of it. I'm really curious if that kind of gets captured, the residualness of all of the machinery running, because again, especially in the era when it was 24/7, 3 shifts a day, that would have been a lot of activity happening. It's a hubbub kind of thing, I'm really curious if we can catch any of that stuff in our evidence.
And that amazes me that a facility like this actually was running 24/7 in that time frame. I mean, it makes sense. So yeah, I can't wait to see what we find.
Yeah, agreed.
So
Well, let's go to the end of the deck, and there's a lot of information available on a really good website for the Red Mill Village Museum, and the events that they host, ways to come and visit, the exhibits that are there. Again, it's an active museum, lots of great stuff going on, ways to explore it, of course, ways to support and donate. There is a gift shop, like every good museum, you exit through the gift shop. Some cool stuff there. But I want to point out a couple things that, the tours are available Thursday through Sunday. And in that, you get a pretty comprehensive walkthrough of the property, of the mill building and the property. And as I understand it, there is, as we're approaching, the end of the week, we're hitting, there we are. There's 30 to 40,000 artifacts. That's amazing. And they're obviously, they could have attachments. That's a great point. They've all have somebody who's used them and held them dear. As we move into spooky season officially on Friday, when we get into September, there will be coming in October, I understand, a haunted house at the site as well, which those places are always fun to spend the evening out on a Friday night and get a little cider and maybe a candied apple and get the wit scared out of you, all in good fun as well. So a couple good reasons to come and see the property as well beyond the opportunity we have this weekend. So that's all I have, honestly. So, okay. I'm going to lean out to you guys, the team and Daryl and Ron and Lourdes and Chris and the Jotniks New Jersey team and everybody who's going to be there, to be eyes and ears on this. We're going to have a reveal episode a little bit further down the line, with all of we're going to be there a long time, the extended visit we have there this on Saturday. So I think we're probably going to need a couple weeks to sit down and go through things. I know we're still sifting through stuff from Hinsdale and the Arnold trip, with that being like 3 weeks ago. Not everybody has had time because we have day jobs and families and life stuff. So hopefully we can set out a date, maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month out from the visit, and have an episode on a reveal. So there will be more to come on this for sure. Who better to get it from than the investigators who are actually there, right. In the space.
And let's talk a little bit about the investigators that are there. I mean, on our team, we've got, our normal team, we've got our New Jersey team, Tim and Erica, plus Amanda and Kelly and any of their other people. Mm-hmm. We've got some of our Eclipse team is coming out. They'll be there. So that's great to have them with us again. And then we've got our the other people that are part of this. We've got Daryl Mars. I always mess up his last name. So Daryl. Okay. So excited to work with him again. We've got Ron and Lourdes who are doing they're working on a new communication type device that I know they're going to be bringing along to the mill, which I'm excited because I'm paired with them the whole evening. So I'll get to spend a lot of time with them. They use a white noise and then they slow down the replay. So you can actually, something that you may have heard in like 3 seconds, if you stretch it out to maybe 30 seconds, there's actually sentences in there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I'm really excited to see that demonstrated and how that works. Obviously, we've got Jerry and Melissa from our team. We've got who am I missing?
Chris Mendez.
Chris Mendez. How can I forget Chris?
Speaking of equipment, he'll have his backwards box that he shared with us last week.
Yep, he'll definitely have that, and I'm sure he'll be live streaming on. Which one does he do?
Teddy and Chris.
Teddy and Chris. Yep. So on TikTok. So keep an eye out there for him. So it should be a good evening. A great team of people. Also friends of ours who do a lot of stuff with us. The Lynches will be there. Bert and Heather. So looking forward to seeing them. Maybe we can include them in some of our review stuff that we get.
Absolutely. They always have equipment running. Mm-hmm. So Love that.
So,
And really solid investigators too. So I'm excited they're
yeah,
going to make it too.
yeah. So,
Man, you're making me more bummed out than I was before about not getting there. Jeez.
sorry, Jamie.
Come on, dude.
So,
Well, I'll be back sooner than later. I'm sure of that.
yeah.
So,
And I'm sure, I'd love to work with the mill again, and maybe hopefully this isn't the last event we do there. So,
well, I can say this, and Daryl has been there. Daryl Marston has been there quite a few times, as an opportunity. So hopefully that is something where we can partner again with him, to set up something next year. I don't know what the fall looks like, as far as opportunities. We start to get tight on time before weather starts coming in. A lot of these places are not climate controlled, and becomes somewhat challenging. And sometimes it's just a matter of logistics and scheduling. When we get in again, we'll call it spooky season, but a lot of places are pre-booked, because of the Halloween season that these places kind of promote, to folks who aren't normally in the field doing regular work with, like we do, investigating regularly. So it's great because again, it's their schedules are full, and that's fantastic. But we'd love to get back, and even if it's not a full big group like this is, and we can find something where we can help them out as well. Like this does help the organization, as well. So it's a dear thing.
So, and we got a comment from Jim, from one of the people at the mill. He'd love to have us. So
Thank
we'll
you.
definitely make sure we set some stuff up. So,
We'll find our way back. No worries.
so yeah, I think it's going to be a great event. It's there are some tickets left. I think registration starts at 5. We start officially at 6 o'clock, and then we go to 2 a.m. That's a long. It'll be a long investigation. So,
if I'm not mistaken, there's a break, somewhere between the second and third session, to have a campfire with some ghost stories and some snacks, and probably a lot of s'mores action happening there. You can't have a campfire without s'mores. So,
and I believe our parish chef will be there with other treats as well available for purchase.
Absolutely.
Heather, you were great to work with, so of course we'll compliment you anytime. We love investigating with you too.
I love you guys.
So
yeah, this is going to be a fun night. So again, as Chad mentioned, tickets are still available. We'll have a slide up in a few moments, on the outro of the how to get there if you haven't gotten yet and you're interested. This is a limited ticket event. Tickets are needed to be purchased in advance as well. So please, if you are at all interested, make sure you get in and get registered. I want to say there's 4 tickets left, perhaps, Chad. Does that sound right?
At last I heard, that's what yes, there were 4 tickets.
I'm sorry, I just saw Bert's comment. I don't believe you, Bert, but I appreciate it.
One note I know parking is tight on site, so there is a parking lot across the street, I believe, that we're redirecting guests to. So keep an eye out for that if you're coming. Like I said, I'm going to get down early in the day. Maybe I'll try to catch a history tour early in the day too, and get to walk through everything with them, so I know what's going on. I know not everybody likes to do that, but that's one of the things that I find helpful to do.
I do too. I do too, and I'm showing my age perhaps that way too. But I like to get there early and get a lay of the land. Just in it. This is an obvious statement perhaps, but everything's different in the daylight. And when you roll into it, we have this happen all the time. And I'll use West Virginia as a great example because we did this. We got there early enough, actually with the Lynches, and we weren't planning this, of course, but we all got there at the same time and did the afternoon tour. But we came back in the evening to do the investigation, and it's totally dark out, and the place looks ominous at night. It looks pretty ominous in the daytime too. It's a huge Gothic prison, it's design, but it was a lot different at night, and to get your bearings and to know where to go and where these areas are. It really helped to be there in the daytime and have the guided tour. Who was a former guard there, with some real true insights, was really a great thing. So it's never a bad idea, and it helps to support the place as well. Getting that ticket to do that daytime tour is a double dip of support. So you can never go wrong with that.
Yeah, definitely. So
okay. So
anything else you want to throw out there at this point, Jamie?
At this point, I think, and again, we're just waiting for the weekend. Yes, Heather, you do.
Yes, yeah. I think there were 3 of us.
Yeah, all 3 in a row.
So,
Yeah,
yep.
that I don't I'm joking to say this to some degree, but being inside of an abandoned prison was bad enough, but being in the cell inside of an abandoned prison with it closed on you and knowing you can't just open it yourself was a sobering moment of being scared straight. You know, I don't ever I don't want that to happen to me.
No,
So,
definitely not. So,
oof, I enjoy my freedoms. So
well, again, we can't push the Red Mill enough at this point. We're looking
absolutely,
forward
this
to
is what it's
them.
all about.
We appreciate them, letting us do this event, and Daryl with getting us all hooked up. It'll be a great time.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. If you don't make this one, please consider the next one. If you're in the area, and any day, Thursday through Sunday with the tours and so forth.
yeah.
Keep in mind the fall's coming and the spooky season, so the opportunities there for the haunted things that the mill's going to provide. They do a great job with everything. It's a wedding venue as well, so and not saying anything to anybody specifically, but hey, take a look at it. It's a beautiful property. A lot of cool things.
One interesting tidbit about this picture that you like the mill. It is one of the most photographed mills in the country. Is a little like I found that just in the 5 minutes of looking at pictures. It's one of the most photographed mills, and it's a beautiful picture. So with the water and the, I'm sure in the fall with the foliage changing colors behind it, it's got to be beautiful. So,
super cool.
So,
all right.
Okay.
Anybody have any more comments about the property? Anything we need to know? If not, we'll move off and we'll wrap up.
So, Lynches are going to try to take it for too. So, yep.
Perfect.
So, all right. Well, I will jump ahead. Contrary to what the banner said for the longest time on the screen, this is episode 19. So next week will be episode 20. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to shift the time. We're trying a little bit of an earlier time because it's a late night for everybody. But we're going to do 8:30 next Tuesday. And Melissa and Jerry Keller, the founders of Jotniks, are going to join us. We're going to look back at the history of Jotniks. Jamie and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Jotniks, so we wouldn't have 20 episodes under our belt. So we're going to talk to them about the history, some of the stuff that they've done, some of their places that they like, where Jerry comes up with the ideas for his equipment, where where he's investigating getting equipment stuff, some little different details, things like that we haven't talked to people about. And diving into some other things, we'll see what Melissa can come up with. She has a lot of stories, and I can't wait to hear some of them. So
absolutely, yeah, I agree. This is gonna be fun.
So, then as far as the team for September, we've got the Red Mill. We've been talking about that for the last 40 minutes. September 9th and September 30th, we've got public investigations at Booby's Brewery. Let's see. The 30th is National Ghost Hunting Day, so we've got that to look forward to. World's largest ghost hunt is that day. If you want tickets to any of the stuff for the brewery, the Saver Stub app, the Boobies website, our Facebook page, any of those things, they're all linked up to that. Let's see. And then our next slide is the Red Mill slide itself. Look at that team down there. That's exciting group of people. I love that picture. Hopefully I can get some good night shots. My dog's in the background howling.
What was that?
Part coonhound, can you tell?
Dude, you need a snack.
It's not my stomach this time, I swear. Dave would disagree because he heard that our last investigation. But anyway, again, join us for the Red Mill investigation. It'll be great. And then, here's the links to our socials, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. The team's really doing a good job on TikTok. We're trying to get up to enough followers so we can start doing some lives on TikTok during our investigations. So that'll be cool. Totally. So, Thanks, Jim. Yeah, thank you, Jim. We saw your comment. Looking forward to it. Join us at any of these events. it's a great time. So
Absolutely.
uh,
Thanks everybody for, as we roll up on the 20 episodes, I think it's noteworthy to say, if we started this, we didn't think we were going to make it past one. So
well,
we had
3
a lot
weeks we're going to do one, and then that was going to be it. And
let's see how bad it is. We'll be told not to try again. So we appreciate those who are watching us, and obviously, it's a labor of love for us. It is a lot more than what goes on in the background. To get to this point, to get the episode up and running. Chad, I say this every week. Thank you so very much for all your technical support and assistance and knowledge.
Sure.
We wouldn't be here without you. And Dave, obviously Dave Dermidi, our former co-host and occasional contributor. Dave was so integral in getting this up and running too. So I just sit here and babble. So that's I get the easiest part of it. So really cool.
So,
all right.
Okay. Well,
last thoughts for Saturday.
I mean, you've typically asked, do you think it's haunted? I don't know, but hopefully we will know by Saturday. My guess is there's definitely activity there. Being smack dab between a river and a limestone quarry, there's got to be energy there, and with everything that's happened over that amount of time.
Yeah, I do want to drop something else here quick, and I apologize. I should have said this earlier when I was alluding to it. When you look at the 1810 to 1928, 28, 118 years or so of operations, a lot of that time was done without OSHA standards, and most of that time was done without the equipment that we would find today to help us, fix things. So the over under here for activity is probably over by a lot.
Right.
The bit that I could report to you. So I think that means the good plausibility that this is haunted. And I sure hope so. I hope you guys capture a ton of stuff, and I hope we have a double episode, like we did last week, because of the 2 investigations in New York. To a worth of stuff to come back with, and really just have a great weekend. Obviously be safe coming in and out. There's a bit of driving for everybody, but I'm just so jealous. I really am. So have a great time. So it's the foot self-inflicted, so it's my own fault I'm not going. But I hope you guys have a great time, and obviously the team and all the folks coming in are great too. So it's such a wonderful time. So
all right, well, I'm sure you'll hear next week how things went on next week's episode. So
perfect. Looking forward to it.
Like you said, 20s next week with Jerry and Melissa. So
man, we're getting old. 20.
So all right, Jamie.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
All right, take care.
Yep.